All right, can everyone hear my voice?
Yes.
All right. So if everyone is ready, so let's start. Hello everyone, welcome to the Android Development in Action workshop. And today is section 2. And this workshop is mainly delivered by the GDSA app development team. And this is our members that we have introduced last week. In today's session will mainly be covered by me, Rishan, and my partner, Better. And yeah, and feel free to ask your questions during presentation. You can open your mic or just type in the chat box. Me and my dear members will answer your questions as soon as possible. And before the start, and I guess everyone can open the link that I said in the chat, right? Can everyone open it?
Yeah, I can open.
All right, and I assume everyone can open it, and you can put the chat just beside. And kindly remind, please take your attendance for today. All right, so let's start. And I will, so what we will know today, and actually today we'll move to the UI part for the login and the main page. And we also know some activities, intents, XML file, views, view groups, and logging using the Google. And so overall, what we will know today is about the design and logging. And I will show everyone a video about the outcome. And you can see, I test this app using my real phone. And after downloading, and we sign in with Google account and enter our app. And you can exit our app by press the logout button. So, and before start our session, I have few questions for you. And one is, do you think UI is important? Why? Or what will you do or think before design? And what are the steps you will use for design? Actually, there are a lot of questions, and I will leave you some time to think about it. If you are get ready, please open your mic to share with us, okay, or you can also type in the chat box. Everyone could feel free to share your opinion. UI is important to make the app user-friendly yeah, it's important because it's first thing we see and it's first impression. All right. And I think everyone have think about this question before. And let's move, yeah. Thank you for everyone's sharing. And guys, I suppose all of you know about we don't judge a book by its cover, but at the same time, you might also heard of you have only 3 seconds to make a good impression. Yes, not just for the icon for the first impression, but the design of the app is actually more accurate. And it's something like your job interview or just like your first date. And your app might be only have few seconds for users to judge your company, your brand, or your product. And also, so usually before the design, I always ask myself a question: if I was a customer, will I buy a product or will I comfortably use the product from the company? And also, actually, we spend a lot of time to brainstorming on how could make the content of the product better, but how to make our brand stronger. And this time, the design or is really powerful, and we don't have to take much time, or it doesn't take a lot to get, but you can actually see the great part, the good design we bring to you. And yes, actually, there are some principles we can use for design, like some color theory, the typography, the user experience design, or the interface design, right? And in today's session, we cannot promise you guys to know all of them, but at least you can have you can think of it before you design, or you can get familiar with the whole process when you are designing the UI. And all right, let's move to before project. We'll know the views, view groups, and layout. And this one, you can know what we can use for design. And for the activity XML, and we'll finally recognize the workspace. This time we'll know where or how to design. Okay, and let's move to view first. And view in Android actually be defined as a fixed area of pixels. So what is a pixel? A pixel is something, it's smallest, actually it's the smallest addressable element. And a pixel is something like one dot or one square that make up an image on your computer screen. And the more pixels they are, the more accurate or the more real your image will look like. And why we say it's a fixed area. And everyone could think of your eyes view, right? It's actually you can only see the part of your site, and it's actually a limited area with boundaries. So we say it's a fixed area of pixels, and think of your eyes view, and the same in the mobile phones. And in Android, actually, we provide many views like the button, the edit text, the slider, checkbox, radio button, switch, and so forth. And this time, and everyone please open your Android Studio, that open your project. That's we last week's project. Can everyone do it? And I will give you some time to open it. And at the same time, we'll review our workspace. And the XML file is where we can use during your design, and it's inside the resource and the layout folder. If you click it, you can find here is a hello world, right? And if we're back to your PPT, you can see here is your palette panel. You can choose some views to use that for your design. And here is the attribute tab that you can give all the attributes to your views. And you can also find the component tree, which show you clearly about the hierarchies. And can everyone open your Android Studio? I will give you some time to open it. if you can open your Android Studio, the project, you can give us a like or thumb. All right, now I assume most of you have already opened your Android Studio. And let's say, and please make sure your Android Studio is, please double check it's connected to Firebase. You can click the tool Firebase. It will give you ascendant, and you can give you a double check whether your project is connected to beta Firebase. And let's move. All right, here, if you open the main activity XML file, you will find here is a hello world. Here is a text view in our project. Actually, the hello world is the starting it's a default text view in our new XML file, and if we can delete it just by entering the delete tab. And if here you can actually drag or drop some views inside our project. For example, here I will drag our button. I will drag a button here, and if we drag a text view like a plain text, if we drag it here and password, and if I drag a text view here, everyone could just drag or drop some views inside your layout editor and give it a go. And if we click the text view and also click the attribute button, you can see that every view we have its own attribute. Here, if for the text view we have the layout width, layout height, and the text, and also its ID. And for example, I change the text view, the text from default to hello from session 2, and let's press enter. And I will give you some time to drag or drop some views from the palette. You can drag or drop and leave its design as what you like or what you want to be. Everyone, please give it a try. All right, if everyone can already drag or drop some views into your layout editor, and let's can move to the view group. So actually, just now we know the views, right? And view group, multiple views combined to be a view group, and it has many parent views and child view within it. And you can see here is a view group. It has its own child view and its own parent view, and also it's a base class for layouts. So why we say that it's a base class for layout? Actually, some view groups combined to be, or it's arranged, the design to be layout as they organize their child view in a specific way. And here, there are some commonly used layout that in Android, like the linear layout, the constraint layout, the grid layout, or the table layout. And actually, for the linear layout is we design or we assign the content in a single direction, whether it's vertically or horizontally. And for the constraint layout, the constraint layout is the child view elements could using some constraints, the edges or the guidelines to control how the elements are positioned relative to each other in the layout. And also constraint layout, we can use it easier to click or drag or drop. Just think the example what you are doing just now. And the grid layout is a layout that places its child view in a rectangular grid that can be scrolled. And the table layout actually is a group of views that elements are arranged into columns or rows. And let's back to others. Let's back to just now what we designed here. If we run it, if we run this, let's see what will happen. Yeah. Please give a time to it, because it's the first time you close your emulator. And everyone could say that it's so weird, right? Because it's totally different from what we designed. It's totally different. So what does it happen? Why in the emulator the design is totally different? And we all know that all the views actually they combines, or they originally they are codes. So here you can choose a code to, let's say, you can see there are many red lines, right? Because there are some which mention us there are some errors. If we see the error is like this view is not constrained, and it can only works under the constraint layout. Because if we see here is a constraint layout, right? It hints us that we have inside the constraint layout, we must give every views inside a constraint so that the layout will place what we want it to be inside the emulator, right? So how to place or how to give a constraint to it is actually very simple. You can drag or drop it to match the right or left side. And here, for this text view, we have already gave it a left or a right constraint. And also, I will introduce you another thing, is the guideline. Can everyone find it? Just above your text, your layout editor, you can find the guideline. For example, if we choose the horizontal guideline, here you will see here is a dotted line, right? This is a guideline you can use for your inside your project to give the layout easily. For example, here for the test view, we already gave its left and right side the constraint, and if this time we give it a top and the bottom constraint. For example, here, if we move the guideline, you can find it. The test view also moved accordingly with the guideline. So you can have a try. And also, if we already gave the constraint for the test view, and we also can give the constraint for the other views. So let's do that. For the name, it's the plain text. We also give it a constraint for that match this. And for the password, and for another view, we can give the constraint to match its parent or to match other elements. For example, here, the password is a plain text. We match the parent to the text one to this element, so we can give it a try. And also, we pass it here. And also, if we find it's too tight, we can just by drag or drop to give it a constraint. Or you can see the constraint. You can give the constraint inside the layout. For example, we change the 84 to 90. You can find it already gave the constraint for the top of the view, and also we give the constraint for our bottom. And if this time we have already gave all the constraints to all the elements or to all the views, so if we back to the code, we can see all the errors are gone. So if we run our app this time, if we rerun it, you will see all the layout has been placed that the way we want it to be. Can everyone follow this way? Or can you understand what is the constraint layout? All right. So let's move to activity. Let's move to our PPT first. And I assume that in session 1, we all have already been through what exactly activity is. And can everyone find your activity inside the Java folder? And you can, according to the image in the PPT, can you find it? I will give some time to find your main activity. And I assume everyone could find the main activity. And let's define what is exactly a main activity. Actually, first it's a Java class, right? It's just inside the Java folder. And also it's an application component. And all the UI we saw in our applications, they are all represented by a class activity. And so overall, we can summarize that the activity comprises two things. They are Java class and the UI. And here, actually, an activity can typically has UI layout and is usually defined in one or more XML file. And everyone could think it's just where we designed before, right? And XML is short for the extendable markup language. And actually, Android provide a straightforward XML vocabulary that corresponds to the views and the subclasses of the views, and which can present the width or height or the layout of our layout of the views. And so let's talk about why we use XML file. Actually, the XML-based layout could provide you a separation of the UI component from the code logic, and which turns to provide the flexibility to change one views or one component without affecting much other generating XML layout. And also, let's have a try. If we see the code of the XML file, you can see every view is actually a separated code that we can change some attributes to it without affecting others. And if we open a new XML file, you will see it's look like this. And in the XML, here you can see with an echo bracket, and the first line, the start point of our project, you can find the version and the Unicode of the XML. And also you can see here is a constraint layout, right? Because we just say that the constraint layout is a default layout for a new project. And also because it's layout, so it's a view group. And with the constraint layout, we can determine the position by no matter for drag or drop it, or we can use something like the guideline that we used before to give it a constraint or give it a position. And let's back. And how we can define a layout. You can see here, if we can define a layout, actually it's within a pair of angle brackets, and the ending part here is a constraint layout, right? The ending part starting with a /, and that's the way how we can define layout. And also this is a text view which we see beginning is a hello world, and inside the test view, how we define the test view is we add a angle bracket, and by the ending the bracket, we give it a /. And for every views, we just know it has its own attributes. And to write the code in XML, we can just give a property name. For example, for the test view, we give it a width or height, and the text and a text hello world. And this one is just we drag or drop to match its left, right, or top, bottom constraint. So, and let's back to our project. If we delete all of them, we can from the code. If we delete all of them, you can see if we define a view, let's define a view first, and let's define a button view, and we can starting with an angle bracket inside with the view name. For example, here is a button, right? And here you can see it automatically let you select some layout width and layout height, and here you can see there is a wrap content and match parent. So what does it mean? If we select wrap content first, you can see, and we give the button an ID. For example, we give it button btn, and why it give you error? Because it's inside the constraint layout. For example, we change the constraint layout to the relative layout. Can everyone follow me? If you don't follow it right, you just watch me on presentation. And if we change the constraint layout to relative layout, and here we cannot give it a constraint. And just now we give the button the width, the height, and the ID. Why we should give an ID? With an ID, you can use the button inside your Java file later. We can find the resource of the view by finding its ID. So it's important for us to give every view a unique ID. So after we give ID, you can see here is a button, but without any text. So here we give it a text, and you can just type text. If everyone can follow me, you can just type text and you press enter, and you can give a text. For example, it's a button. And to end define the view, it's just by enter /, and it will automatically give you this. Can everyone do it? All right. Let me start first. Here, inside the button, we can see the attribute, right? We just give the ID, give the width, height, and the text. And here, if we change the wrap content to match parent, let's see what will happen. Yeah, just now we changed the layout width to match parent. You can see the whole width of the button has expanded to match its own parent. And if we change it back, if we change the match parent to wrap content again, you can see. And if we change the button, the text from button to hello from session 2, you can see here the button has already expanded or snagged around its own content. So this is inside the wrap content a button will be. And if we change the layout width from the wrap content to match parent, you can see the whole width of the button has matched its own parent. So I assume, can everyone know about something about the wrap content and match parent for the layout width and layout height? Can everyone know about it? All right. So let's back here. And this one is we just talked about. the difference between the match parent and wrap content. And actually, match parent used to be field parent. And with this name, maybe you can get a better understanding. And because in Java API 8, it has already been decorated. And it defines the border of the child view expand to match the border of the parent view. But for the wrap content that we just demonstrated, and the child view snap around its own content. You can just change the tab from the button to hello from section 2 and expand it. So final part. Let's start our project. And let's start it from the color pattern. And actually, the choice of the color inside your design or your project is quite important. And I will recommend everyone a website that I often use for design. Can everyone open the cheat sheet? If you open the cheat sheet, inside here you can find a website which called Color Hunt. If we right click inside a new tab, I will give you some time to open the cheat sheet if you have not. That I posted to the starting of the project chatbox. You can find the cheat sheet here and open it. I will give you some time to open. Please find here is a useful color pattern website, and if we click it, all right. So everyone can see here's a color hunt, and this website is that I often use because it's so useful, and we could select or filter the color just by select its main color. For example, we select red. You give us many good color palette, and if we want to change the color inside our project, we should find the color XML file. And where is the color XML file? It's inside the resource value colors folder. I will give you some time to find it, and everyone please open that. Can everyone find the color XML file? All right, I assume a lot of you have already find the color XML file inside the resource and the value folder. And that's a way how we can add or how we define color inside our project. For example, it's also with an echo bracket, and we give the name of the color, and we give the hexagonal value of the color. And if we copy the color, let's add a value first. Let's copy a color. For example, this. How we can add a color, starting with an echo bracket, and we give the color. And if we give the name like red and close, you give it for example, a hashtag with the color you copy, and this way you can copy a color inside your project, or you can add your color inside your project. And if we want to delete the color, we just delete this line. Can everyone add a color, for example, here to your project? So let's talk about why we use some hexagonal color. And I assume a lot of you might know some color in RGB, right? So the RGB is short for the red, green, and blue. And here, why we use the hexagonal value? The hexagonal number is a user-friendly representation of the values in binary code. And also the hexagonal color could starting with a hashtag and followed by the 6 digit. And each two represented by the red, blue, and red, green, and blue. And if you can add a color into our project, so let's try to add the color we need in our project. You can find here, inside the cheat, you can find here is the color pattern. Everyone could copy the color that we set before and Command or Control C, and let's replace the color pattern that we used before from here. From the resource, let's replace the color. Then this is the color pattern that we use in our project. I will give you a few times to change the color pattern. All right. Can everyone change the color pattern? If you have already changed, please give us a like. All right, thank you. So I will start at 841. Everyone could change the color pattern. Yeah, inside here. All right, and I assume most of you have already changed the color pattern, and you can you find this same XML file just on the color XML file? You can see here is a summary line because we have deleted or we have changed the color pattern. And here we have to also change something into the same to match the color in our project. And everyone could also see the cheat sheet. Here is the same, here is the same, and copy paste all the same, and Command or Control C. And inside our project, can you here we can we delete from the primary brand color to the customized your same here this slice, and we delete it, and we copy paste all the same that we defined for our project to our inside the same XML file. And also a reminder here, not only for this same and also for the night same, we have to change for both sames, and also starting from here to here, and we change our same. I will also give you about 1 minute or 2 minutes to leave you to change the same. Can you change your same in your project? If you change the same, please also give us a like button, or you can open your mic to answer us. For that, we can move to the next step. All right, thank you. Or if you think I'm talking too fast or too slow, you can talk to us. We can repeat something again. All right, we'll take your problem later. Can everyone change the same? All right, after you change your same, here is something that we have to give you a reminder. We have to change the appearance of the style inside the style name. Here is a parent, right? You can copy this code, and we can change the dock action button to no action button. You just for example, you just delete. Everyone can see my screen, right? You can delete from here. You can delete the dock action button, and we give a name. And if we just enter the capital N, it will give you the hint about the no action bar, and everyone could change from the dock action bar to the no action bar for both sims. Also for the night sim, we change the dock action bar to the no action bar. Also give you some time to change. And also, if you know sure, you can refer to the cheat sheet that we change the parent, the dock action bar to the no action bar. Right, and I assume a lot of you have already changed. Let's move to the next part. And the next part, we have to change or we have to add the font to our project. And what the way we add the font, you can see from our PPT, or you can follow me. Can I start? All right. So to add the font inside your project, actually it's some kind of we add the font resource into our project. So what we add is inside the resource folder, and right click and add the new Android resource directory. Can everyone do like it? If we press enter the Android resource directory, and here is the resource type that we change the we add the font. You scroll a little bit up, you can find here is the font, and you change the resource type, the font, and we press OK. Here you can see here is the resource font folder. Can everyone add the folder? Wait a minute. If you can add the folder, please give us some feedback. All right. So is there anyone who don't know how to add the font? I will demo again. Inside the resource folder, and we new Android resource directory, and press enter, and change the value to font, and press OK. All right. And I assume a lot of you have already added this folder, so let's move. Inside our cheat sheet, you can find here, we provide you an icon or font link. Here, please right click, open it. Inside our folder, inside our section folder, you can see here is a Pacifico font, and we download it. We right click and download it. Actually, what we use the Pacifico font is an original font with a brush script handwriting. So let's move it to our project. Here you can see, right? Here's the font. And we change the Android to project. Is actually we can add that way. Can you download the file, the font file? If we download the file, then we drag or drop it into our font package. And if you can see here, the font file has already been added, then which indicate you successfully added. All right, let's move on. If you find there are a lot of two tabs, you can right click and close all the tabs. And I assume everyone have already added the font. Next, we add some icons. And in last session, we have already added the launcher file that Jiahong demonstrated. And here, what we add, and we know the way how to add some icon is by right click, new, and here is some vector access or image access. Actually, for the icon, what we define is inside the vector access. If you press it, you can find or select many icons to add to your project. But here we have already prepared you this file, and please download it. Please download the drawable file. And wait a moment. After it downloaded, because it's a zip file, you have to unzip it. You can see. I will give some time to download. If you download it, you can press the Command or Control A to select all the file, and Command or Control C to copy all the file. And we copy inside in our drawable folder. So let's Command or Control V and press OK. OK. And now you can see we have added already all the fonts, or not all the fonts and all the icons to our project. And let's close all the tabs. Can everyone follow the step? I will give some time to download the font and the drawable. And I assume most of you have already added the icons and the font into our project. So let's move to our main activity. So let's extract some components in our main activity. Here you can find here what we show. Here is a toolbar, and inside the toolbar is a view, right? That we can add inside in our XML file. And here is the image view. Image view is inside the toolbar. And here is the menu for our logout. So we talk about it later. And here is a floating button. The floating button, we have many icons and also the shadow with it. And talking to the material toolbar, that's this part, we have to talk about something about the material design. And sometimes you might find that it's difficult, or the design process could be so challenging. And this time, the material design Actually, it's a guideline for our design. And despite for the guideline, material design also can give you some components we can use inside our Android application. So if everyone can, inside our cheat sheet, you can find here is a material design link, and please open the link. Here is the material design main page, and if we press the develop, you can see we can not only use the material design for Android, but we can use it for iOS, web, or Flutter design. And let's press Android. You can see here in this panel we can choose the components, documentation, theming, or supporting APIs. And if we press the component, and what we need to find is the material toolbar, and actually it's a bar in the top of our app, and you can see inside the bar there are many scenarios that could tell you to use this bar, and it will give you some type, the also the behaviors, the theming, and the icons in the tab. And also later what we'll use is a button. The floating action button is like this. It's how we can add our diary. And this material design is a guideline. You can refer to it to make your own design later, or you can see how the car view can do, or how the views, how the components can do in our project. So let's move back. Let's move to our main activity. So let's write the material toolbar together. And please also like open your main activity XML file, and let's delete the button. Delete it. And also here we use code. And we change the relative layout back to the constraint layout. First, delete the relative out if you follow my step to constraint layout. And inside the constraint layout, for example, what we have here is a toolbar, right? Material toolbar is a toolbar. We can add, starting with a bracket and toolbar. What we need to use is the Google material toolbar. Press enter. For the layout width, we set to 0 dp. So what is a dp? dp actually is a density independent pixels, and it's an abstract unit to based on your physical device of your screen. And for the ways we change it to action bar size, and you can see here, you can already see. Let me make it bigger for you to see. You can already see the toolbar, and why there is an error that we know that it's because inside the constraint layout we have to give it a constraint, and if you don't want to type the constraint, you can just by drag or drop to give it a right, left, top constraint. So you can see here the error is gone, and we give it a background color. You can just type background, and choose the background color. We give a color to create, and also let's give it a gravity. For the gravity, we change to start. So what is the gravity? Actually, in Android, can everyone do like that? Or I will give you some time to say. Or if you think you cannot follow the steps, you can check the cheat sheet. All the code that I use is from the cheat sheet. And actually inside the Android, we have the meaning tool gravity. One is the gravity, another one is layout gravity. What is the difference? I will give you a demo. So here you can see, here you can see 3 edit text view and 3 button. And for each of them, I gave them, I will put it here. Okay. And for each of them, I gave them unique ID. For example, for the text edit text, and we give it an ID, and we say the layout width and layout height, no matter for the map parent or wrap content. And also we give it input tab. It's a specific type you can define in the edit text. And here also 3 buttons inside a linear layout. Inside a linear layout. If we add, you can just say me if inside the first edit tab, if we add the gravity to center, you can see what will happen. Okay, what if we add the layout gravity to you can see you have layout gravity if we change it to center, and you can see here it's centered the gravity. And for the gravity, if we don't use the layout gravity, instead we use the gravity to center, you can see the text, the edit text of inside the edit text have already been centered. So what does it mean? If we add the gravity, to right, the first edit text to right, you can see the contents inside the view have already been placed to right. And so what is the so if we add the layout gravity to center, you can see all the button move to center. And also for this button, if we add the layout gravity to right, you can see all the button to the right. So now we can already understand this meaning. So the gravity is we set the gravity of the content, but for the layout gravity is we set the parent view. For example, the edit text, if we use the gravity, is we set inside the content of the view to have some change. And I assume everyone can have a better understanding of the gravity. And another one is for in our project, project, for example, we give it a elevation to 10 dp. So what is the elevation? Elevation actually is the z property. You can say it's a z dimension. It doesn't change any view size of the x and y value. It only give you some. You can think the view of the this can move on the dimension a little bit. Here, if we add the dimension, you can see here is some shadow to give you some hint. And also, let's move. So next one is our image view. So inside our toolbar, there is an image view for our icon. So what we add is the layout width and the layout height, and we adjust the view bound. And what is the adjust view bound? We'll talk about later. And we give the source to the full logo. And if everyone could, can you understand all the code? If we can understand, you can actually copy this line of code inside the here. Here you will see here is the image view inside the material toolbar, and we can copy it. And if we have to add another view inside already exist view, we have to like give it an ending bracket, and we pasted our image view here, and you can see inside our toolbar an image view already be added. I will give us some time to add the image view. All right, so let's move to the next part. Next part actually is the logout button, or we can name it a logout menu because it's an item inside a menu. So for do that, what we need to do is to add the resource of the menu. It's just like what we just like how to add the font. It's right click and new add a Android resource directory. We see the resource type from the value to menu. Press enter. Here you can see a menu has already been added. And we have to add the file inside the menu. Right click, new. You can find the name of the menu that we will use later inside here. Everyone please use the same name that we provide in the cheat sheet. Inside, we have to name the resource of the menu to main activity toolbar menu. And let's press enter. If you already add the menu file to the menu folder, then what we can do is to copy the code that we provide here to your menu. So here you can see our menu, the sign out button have already been added, and inside the menu, everything is like item. Is an item. So what is a menu? You can find a little bit inside the material design. For example, here we can find menu, or we can type the menu here. So menu is just like this. It has many selections inside the tool, inside your bar. And for the sign button, we give the menu. And inside our project, we have two menus. One is this, and another one is when we add the diary, and we'll move it later. So after adding the menu, and we have to move to the floating button. And for floating button, and I will give you some explanations. First, we defined an ID of the button, and we give the layout width and layout height for both wrap content and for the layout margin. Because if we wrap content, the button will be just inside the corner of the right and left, inside the right button, right and bottom corner, and we give it some layout margin to make it slightly taller. And we set the background tint to cream, and we add the source, and that's the further, and inside our drawable folder, and we give the icon tint to brown it, and also we define some constraints. If everyone can, if you have no problem with all the code, then we can copy the code. Just inside here is a floating button. If you can find it, you can copy it, Command Control C, and inside our resource layout, yeah, is our main activity. Here, just below the material toolbar, you can add the button here. And this time you can find the button has already been successfully added to our main activity. And this is how we define or how we design our main activity. And this one is our logging activity. And logging activity, if we extract some components, we can see there is a background image and the background view just in the top of the background image. And here is the card view. This is very important and we'll write together. And inside the card view is just inside the toolbar, we have a nested image view. And also here is a text view. And below here is a button. And let's move to login activity. And so so here we have only main activity inside our folder. To add a new activity, what we need to do is right click, new activities. Here is empty activity. Everyone, please follow me. And if we click the empty activity and we give a name to the activity to login activity. Inside, we choose the empty activity. And let's press finish. So after you add the login activity, you can find here is an activity login file, XML file, just inside the layout resource folder. I will give you some time to create this activity. And please also, after you creating, find the XML file. At first, we need to add the background color inside our app. So how to do that? We can just you can see after the layout width or height, no matter whether everyone you can select, or we can copy or paste, or we can just you can follow me to like add a background to like drawable image. Here is a log background image. Is that this one? Yeah. Or if you cannot follow that, you can copy the code inside here. Here is an Android background, login background image. We add it to our project. And after adding this, you can find the background image has already appeared in our layout editor. And after that, the next step is to move to background view. And also for the background view, actually it's something like another layer just above the background image. So for this view, we have its own ID and its own layout width and layout height, and we give it orientation to horizontal so that it can horizontally place. And we also give the constraints for button and start. So everyone, if you can if you can understand the code, then we can copy the code just inside here. Here is inside our constraint layout. And you can see our view has already been placed above the background image. I will give you some time to do that. All right, let's move. So next one is our card view. This one is important so we can make it together. And to add a card view, I will make it. To add a card view, at start with an echo bracket, we have to give it a card view. And for the card view width and height, we give it for both 150 dp, and also for the height, we give it 115 dp. And you can see here is the card view, right? And also, here is inside the constraint layout we mentioned before. We have to give it constraint. If you don't want to just type, you can drag or drop. For example, it's match its parent for the left and right side, and we give the top constraint. Here, no error, right? So next one is we give the color to background color tint. We give the tint to create. You can see the background have already changed the color to create, and then we give it a card corner radius, because every card view is something like the rectangular or square. Accordingly, for your match your width or height. And if you want to make it a circle, so we have to give it a corner radius. Carry on for that. If you cannot follow us, you can just find some code inside cheat sheet, but do please practice after the session. And let's give it. After the color cream, we give it a card corner radius. If we give the radius to like a 75 dp, you can see it's turns ground. And also, let's give it a margin top because it's too tight to the top. We give it a margin top. Here you can see the first one. And we give the margin top to 20 dp. You can see the card view has already been placed. If you cannot follow this way, you also can copy the code inside here. Here is the card view. And don't forget we should give the card view an ID. For example, ID is card view. Don't forget the ID. You should put the ID no matter for copy paste, but you should follow our ID. And after this, we move to the image, and also the image that we taught before. You can think of the image view inside the toolbar. To give an image view, we can, it's because it's a nest view, so it should inside an card view. And we see the adjust bound width to true, and we see the scale type to face center. So what is the adjust view bound? Actually, you need to set either width or height of your image view, but to wrap the content or to other fixed value. But if we set it to true, it will give you, Android will adjust your image view to your fixed height or width. So this the reason why we use adjust view bound. And for the skill type, you can refer to the image that inside the PPT. Can everyone see that? And if you can see that, for the skill type, actually it's a skill and image to fill its own container. And inside the skill type, we define the center crop, center inside the matrix, and so forth. If you are really get interested to the skill type or the adjust viewbond, you can read something that I pasted into the reading material. Here is a view skill type. So there are all of the properties you can define to adjust your image view. If everyone no problem with this code, we can copy the code. We can copy the code, for example, inside our here. We can copy the code just inside our card view, and you can see here, right? All right. So after this is our text view, and about our text view, also we give it an ID, a unique ID, and we say the width and height to one is for match parent. We say the width to match parent to match the width of the view, and we set the height to wrap content, and also we give it a margin border to certain dp. Here is a very important part. It's what we just ask you guys to download the font inside our drive, and here is how we add the font. We give it a property name, the font family, and give it property value. The value or the source is inside our font folder, is the Pacifico font, and we give it the gravity to center, and we make the content to center, and also we shadow radius is to give some radius to the text view, and here we add both bottom and start and top constraints inside the constraint layout. Everyone could say from the code, or you can say from here if it's possible. Here is the text view. You can see, is there any properties that you don't familiar with? We can speak a little detail. We can repeat again. If there is no problem to you, you can copy it and paste it to your project just after the card view. And you can see here is a test view. And we give the test that get started with your digital diary today. And you can also find the attribute just inside the attribute panel. I will give some time to add the test view. All right, so if you add the test view, and let's move to the material button. Material button is the Google sign-in button, which is considered as very important part. And here we give it the button an ID, the Google login button, and we give the width and height to both wrap content. We give the background thing to cream, and we give it text or caps. That's all the important point why I'm talking. The text or caps to set to false, and actually all the tabs or buttons are defaultly set to capitalize, or it's a capital letter inside the button. So we need to say the text or caps to false, and also we set the icon tint model to multiple. If we without this line, you can see if we copy the code for the material button here is our project. If without the icon tint model, we can see the button loses its original color right? So we have to add this icon tint mode to keep its original color for the icon. And also we have the stroke color and the stroke width. Stroke color and stroke width is we add the line or add the stroke just around the button to give it a stroke, right? Can everyone do it? And everyone please say again if there is any properties or you don't not get familiar with, we can repeat again. Can everyone do so since then we have already built the layout for the main and the login activity. And because a lot of code we just we only paste from our cheat sheet, right? So after the session, you can give you a practice to add to see how we can add or how can arrange something into a good layout. After the session, you can give it a try. So this time we have already an end or we have finished all our layout part. Can you do that? Can everyone do that? All right. Now it's our break time. Yeah, just a reminder, we have only 2 minutes break because the session is gonna be a little bit long. We're back 9:28.
Hello everyone, This is Better Baswed. I'm going to be your presenter for the second part where we are going to get our hands dirty with Java. So before I start, I have 3 points to cover. First of all, uh, given the time constraint, actually, I think we might have to extend the presentation up until uh, 10:15 or maybe 10:20. Hopefully, we are going to do it faster. Second of all, we are going to be working with what may seem as a bit complicated code, but don't worry. Everything is, I'll try to explain everything to the best of my knowledge. And as we progress throughout the events, throughout the next sessions, we are going to repeat a lot of the code. And of course, you are going to have more experience. And all of the knowledge that you are going to gain today is going to be reinforced in the upcoming sessions. And lastly, yeah, you can find the same project on GitHub. You can clone the same project and you can run it. However, you might not be able to log in because you need to connect to our own Firebase project. And we have to give you permission to connect to our own Firebase project. Uh, Unfortunately, we are not going to do that. You just have to follow the code in the repository that we are going to send the link for. So use it just as reference. Don't try to run the application that you clone. So that's all the points that I wanted to cover. Now let's get started. Now, first things first, before we get into the coding part, I'm going to give a brief summary about object-oriented programming just to refresh your mind about the topic. And we are going to see a lot of these concepts implemented. We are not going to implement all of these concepts, however. So this is just a caveat. Now, these are the four pillars of object-oriented programming. We have encapsulation, inheritance, abstraction, as well as polymorphism. Now, for encapsulation, let's say you created a class and it has some variables such as name and date of birth. Let's say that these variables aren't private or they don't contain the private keyword. What you can do with them is you can just simply call the employee class and follow it by .name, and that's how you can get your name. You don't need any getters or setters. However, if you want to implement encapsulation, what you're going to do is you're going to add the private keyword. So once you add the private keyword, you're not going to be able to call the variable explicitly in any other class. You have to add these getter and setter method to manipulate these variables. And what encapsulation basically does is that it gives control or complete control to the variables of the same class to this class so that no one can, or no, there is no other class that is going to be able to modify these variables unless they go through these methods that are found inside the class. Now for inheritance, let's say you have three classes: circle, square, triangle. All of them have a same functionality. You're developing this and you're trying to give them all the same functionality. Now what you can do is you can add certain methods such as draw, erase, and copy it, paste it in square and triangle. However, this creates a lot of redundancy and you don't want that. You want your code to be simplified. So what you do is you create a class, and this class is going to be the super class because all of these classes are going to extend from this super class. So these are all child classes, and all of the methods that are contained inside this class are going to be inherited by default. So we're basically reusing code from the superclass. Now let's look at polymorphism. Let's take the same example. Okay, you have these three classes and you want to add a new functionality such as calculating the area. Now, calculating the area for a circle is different than calculating the area for a triangle. It's a different mathematical formula. If you add this method to the superclass shape, they are all of these subclasses are going to inherit the same method, and this is going to give you a problem. So what you can do is use polymorphism and override this method to give it a new functionality. You can add your own logic inside the distinct implementation inside any of these classes. So polymorphism actually needs many forms. As you can see, for one method in the class shape, we're extending it and basically giving it different logic for each of the methods. Lastly, we have abstraction. Abstraction means hiding the implementation details, and this is not the best explanations. However, I will explain it in this way. We have seen inheritance. If you have a class circle and square, and they extend from shape, that means that they're going to take all of the variables as well as the methods that exist in shape. However, in order to achieve abstraction in Java, you can do it by two ways, either interfaces or abstract classes. So if you define an interface called shape, and you have two classes that both implement from shape, it's very similar to inheritance. You are going to get all of the methods from shape, and you're going to get them in both classes. However, the key difference is that in implementing interfaces, you're going to have to override these methods, unlike in inheritance, where you can just inherit the methods and use them. However, in interfaces, you have to override these methods, and you can't actually instantiate the interface. So if you don't override the method, then you're going to have a runtime error. Now let's look at some of the Android components. First of all, we have activities, and Rushin explained briefly what an activity is. Activities are screened from the app's user interface. So if you want to create an activity, what you have to do is create a class and inherit from the app compat activity class that Android provides. Once you do that, you are going to simply have a blank page, empty. There is nothing in this page. Now you would say, okay, so I'm inheriting from the app compat activity class just to get a simple blank activity where there is nothing going on. Actually, there is a lot going on. And this is the activity life cycle. This is what goes on inside of an activity. Once you inherit from the app compat activity class, you're basically getting all of these methods inside the activity. Now, you don't need to know every single activity and what it does. However, as you advance more in Android programming, you're going to find that intuition, basic intuition in these methods is a bit necessary for you to make your journey a bit easier. So once an activity is launched, it's going to go through a sequence of these methods. It's going to call the onCreate, then onStart, onResume. And then once the activity stops running, let's say the user closes your application, it's going to call these methods, the onPause, onStop, and onDestroy. Now, in an app or in an activity, what you're usually going to do is you are going to override the onCreate method, and you are going to add your own implementation inside of the onCreate method. Now, sometimes you might want to override the onStart, the onResume, or any of these methods, but mostly for building a simple application, you're not going to need to override any of these methods. Now let's look at the context. Context represents your environment. Whenever you instantiate some objects in Android, you are going to find that you might want to use the context. Context basically just tells an object where it's being initialized, to put it very simply. And you can get the context by using these methods or this keyword. You're going to see how we're going to use context in a short time. Secondly, we have intent. Now, let's say you are developing an Android project. Most probably, you're going to have multiple classes, multiple activities. So you must be able to navigate from one activity to another. And in order to do that, you have to create an intent and pass in the application context, and then follow it by the target class that you want to navigate to. And then simply call the start activity method with the intent passed as an argument. So now that we are familiar with the basic ideas, let's go ahead and start coding. Open your Android Studio. I hope your Android Studio is already open. Now, feel free to open your microphone and ask any question. I'm not going to be able to see your comments, so I'm telling you that so that your questions aren't going to be ignored. Now, if you have followed up with Rushin already, you should have a login page, a login activity Java class, as well as an XML file that looks something like this, hopefully. Now, before we implement Firebase authentication, what we're going to do is just simply move from the login activity to the main activity once a user presses the login button. This is just to try to work with the components in Android and get familiar with how to give some functionalities to buttons and whatsoever. Now, any XML view or even a view group that you define here is going to have a Java class, a corresponding Java class. This Java class is going to be, or is going to allow you to manipulate or basically set click listeners to really interact with or to write your own code and provide a custom implementation for you. What do I mean by that? You are going to see that. So first of all, you are going to define the variables, material button. We want to anticipate any click events on this button and then navigate to the next activity. So we are going to use the material button class. And let's go ahead and give it a name, sign in button. And this M over here, it's used as a best practice. Whenever you are defining a member variable for a class, try to use the M or try to append the M prefix before any variable name. So now that we have created this defined this variable, what we want to do is we want to tell this Java class that this variable actually represents the view that exists over here. How do you do that? You have to take the ID that exists over here, copy it, and then go to the activity, and then take your variable, and then use the find view by ID method, and then type r.id, and then you're going to see a list of recommendations. And as you can see, the Google login button is the first one. So I'm going to go ahead and press. Now that you did that, you're basically telling this Java class that this button is the button that we're referencing in the login activity. I just noticed also that I'm adding this code inside of the main activity, which I actually should add in the login activity. So pardon me for my mistake. So make sure you add this code in your login activity and not your main activity. So now we want to give it a functionality. Once the user presses the sign in button, we want to navigate to the other activity. How do we do that? The sign in button, the material button class, provides a method called set on click listener. And the name is very intuitive. You want to add an on-click listener to this button. Now the on-click listener method actually takes in an interface. So you have to pass in an interface. How do you do that? It's very simple. You just type on click listener and you take the first click listener inside your recommendation. You can give it a variable name such as sign in click listener, and then you create a new on-click listener. Now, as you can see, all of this code has been added automatically, and if you try to do it, it's going to give you the same thing. Why is that? It's because the on-click listener is an interface, and it's telling you that you must override this method. If I try to remove this code, as you can see, it's giving us an error. It's giving us a warning. Why? Because we need to implement it. It's an interface. And inside the interface, there is one method called onClick. So basically, onClick, what do you want to do? Whatever code or whatever logic that you want to perform, once the user has clicked over here, you can add it inside the onClick. You can do whatever you want over here. Maybe you want to change the text of the button. You can do that by simply saying sign in button dot set text, or you can basically change the color of the background of the sign in button. You can set it to any different color that you would like. But however, for our implementation, we want to navigate from one activity to another activity. So what we're going to do is create a new intent, just like I showed in the presentation. New intent, and then we have to pass in the application context. Now, who can remember how do we get the context of an application? Please share your responses in the comment section. Anyone remembers? How do you get the context? Get context. Another one? Okay, this, exactly. So let's go over here and try to get the application context by adding this keyword. And then we need to add the target activity class, which is the main activity. We want to navigate to the main activity, and don't forget the dot class keyword. And oh my God, we're getting an error. Why is that? If you use this inside an interface, this is going to return the instance of this same interface. So you don't want that. You want to return the login activity actually. So in order to make it work, you have to pass in login activity dot this. And as you can see, now the error is gone. Now, one more thing we want to add to give some spice to our application. Let's say you want to add a welcome message. How do you do that? You can create something called a toast. And if you're familiar with toast, or if you have an Android device, you might be familiar with toasts. And once you see it in the emulator, you are going to refer back to it. So in order to create a toast, you just call the toast class and then use the .makeText method. Inside, again, you have to pass in the application context. So use login activity dot this, and then you add the message that you want to display. Let's say hello new user. And finally, you need to add the duration. How do you add the duration? Toast actually has two static variables. One of them is long or short. So these are the only two options that you can use, either long or short. Let's make it short toast. And finally, you have to use the .show method. If you don't use the .show, it's not going to display. Now, all this might seem complicated at first, but believe me, this is very simple. Once you are, or once you have more experience in Android, all of this is going to be very simple, and you're not going to even worry about toast messages. So, are we done? No, not yet. We have created the interface. Now we just have to pass in this interface to the setOnClickListener method, and hopefully everything works. However, one thing that you might face is that if you created the main activity first, and then you created the login activity, let's try to create a new activity actually. empty activity. If you see, there is a checkbox called launcher activity. What that means is you want to set this activity as the first activity that is going to be displayed once the user opens the application. Now, common sense or logically, you would want the login page to be the first activity. However, if you have created the login activity and you didn't check the box launcher activity, then the main activity is going to launch first. How do you fix it? So what you do is you go to the manifest directory and then open the manifest file. The manifest file basically contains information about your application and the activities that this application contains. Now, you should have at least two activities, the login activity and the main activity. And if you can see over here inside of the tag for the main activity, there is a nested tag called intent filter. And it's actually specifying that this activity is going to be the launcher activity. Now, in order to change that, what you do is just simply take this code and then remove the backslash and create a closing tag over here so that you can add this intent filter inside the body of this activity tag and then paste. And now the login activity is going to be your launcher activity. So to repeat again, I just copied the code from the tag inside of the main activity and then pasted it inside of the login activity. Now let me try to run. Okay, no questions. Okay, now the login activity is the first page. Let's click sign in with Google. And as you can see, this is the toast message. However, it's not going to the main activity. And why is that? Now, if you paid attention to the presentation, we are actually missing another method called start activity, and we have to pass in the intent. Now let's try again. Hopefully it's going to go to the second activity. Sign in with Google, toast message displays, and it's going to the second activity. So now that you're a bit more familiar with how views and the view groups or the activity basically works, now I think we can move to the Google authentication part. Now, before we can get started to write the code, we actually have to make sure that the application is connected to Firebase. Second of all, we have to download a Google Services file. And lastly, we have to add in some implementations in the Gradle file. So go to Tools, navigate to Firebase. It's taking some time. My laptop is a bit laggy. And navigate to the authentication dropdown and choose the first option, authenticate using Google Sign-In. So first thing, we have to connect the app to Firebase. You should have it already connected. However, if you didn't connect it, follow my lead. I'm going to connect it to the iDiary application and press on the connect button. Okay, now it says that your Android Studio project is connected to your Firebase Android application. You can go back over here and verify by seeing that it has changed to connected. The status is going to be connected. Now, for the second step, we have to add the Firebase Authentication SDK to our application. So as you can see, it's telling us that it's going to add some code inside of our Gradle files. So just accept the changes. Now, for me, I'm getting this error. You might get this error or not. However, if you have the same error, if you have the same error, if you don't have an error, then you're good to go. Then I would recommend you to go to the Gradle scripts directory, go to build Gradle, the project, or actually the build Gradle, I'm sorry. Or, oh, I'm sorry. Don't go to the Gradle files, go to the settings.gradle file. And over here, you should find this line of code. Repositories mode.set, repositories mode, fail on project repos. So what you're going to do is remove this code and instead add prefer underscore settings. So hopefully everything is going to clear up right now. Try again. Open build view. Now my application is a bit laggy. Okay, some changes. Okay, we're getting another error. Google services was not found in any of the following servers. Positive. Okay, so actually, I think we have to go to the next step first before trying to build the Gradle. So if you are with me, you have to, first of all, navigate to the Gradle tab on the right corner of your application. Now, over here, if you don't find tasks, type in the comment section. Can everyone see tasks in the Gradle tab? If you can't find tasks, please write a comment in the comment section. Okay, so I assume that everyone has the tasks directory. If you have it, open it up, go to Android, and press on signing report. Now this signing report is going to Google Services. Okay, wait. SHA. Now, what you do is okay. Once the signing report has finished, you have to copy the SHA1 key. We're going to use this key in our Firebase project. This is going to enable Google sign-in. So we copy this SHA key, make sure it's SHA1. Go to your Firebase project, Firebase. Go to the console, go to iDiary. and go to the project settings. And if you navigate down, you're going to find this button, Add Fingerprint. So press on it, and then simply paste the SHA1 key. Once you're done, once the SHA key has been added, go to the Google Services.json file and download it. Now, you can download it in the desktop or anywhere, but make sure you know where you're downloading it, because you are going to copy it or just simply drag it and drop it inside of your own Android project. So I'm going to put it over here. Okay, open the project. And I'm going to switch to the project view, open the iDiary, expand the app directory, and you should already have a Google Services.json file. So what you're going to do is just simply drag and drop inside the app directory. Now I'm getting an error because this file hasn't completed download. Now make sure you're adding it inside the app directory, refactor it, and it's basically telling you to override because the same file already exists. So add override. Okay. Once that's done, you have to click on sync now. And the project should be synced. The project should work now. Let's try, let me just make sure and run or sync with the Gradle files. And now everything is working fine. So up until here, is everyone good? Till now, is everyone good? Okay, I'm gonna assume everyone is good. So it's already 10. Hopefully in 20 minutes, we are going to try to finish as much as possible. If we're not able to finish within 20 minutes, then we're going to continue in the next presentation next week. So let's go back to Android Studio. Now, actually, this is the wrong project. Oh, it seems that I added the Gradle file in another project. Sorry, that's my bad. Let me do the same exact thing again. Okay, I'm gonna drag this and drop it inside of the app directory. Okay, that didn't work. Download it again. Google Services. Simply drag and drop over here. Click on OK. And I'm still getting the Gradle project sync fail. And don't worry, most probably you are not going to have the same issue. But if you are, then I'm going to share a code snippet that you should paste inside of your own Gradle file. So paste this over here. and it's still giving me a problem. So how about we end the class for today, and we are going to continue on the next session. The next steps are not going to take a lot of work. Sign in is going to need like 20 minutes. So next session we can start by completing the sign in, and then we can continue with the other parts of the content of the next session. So thank you guys very much for joining. I'm sorry we couldn't be able to finish on time. However, you can try to practice on whatever you have learned today, especially working with the XML file. Try to play around with the XML file, and maybe you can also play around with the Java files. So thank you very much, and don't forget to add your attendance to the attendance sheet. I'm gonna pass it on.
Thank you everyone for having it's really nice to having you guys in our event. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I know that it was a pretty long session, a lot of new topic to learn, but don't worry, most of the stuff that we are learning from this session onwards, it will be repeated over and over again. And yeah, we faced some technical issue, and I still know that many of you still have problem with installing, with running emulator. Don't forget that you can always at any time private message me and we solve your problem. And yeah, stay tuned up for we complete this session next week, and we hopefully we'll have our complete application soon enough. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Yeah, don't forget that to save our cheat sheet link at any of the point, go to the links that you need to refer to, and you can have our GitHub repository of this project, and you can see the code there already. And however, you won't be able to run the application because you don't have access to our Firebase project. So try to replicate the code in your project that up to this point we built. Thank you again. Have a good night.